Let's start chapter 5 is the trait theory. Trait theory. This would define that it view that criminality is a product of abnormal biological or psychological traits. It's subdivided into two major categories. Those that's number one, the one that stress biological makeup, those that stress psychological functioning. Sociobiology. The view that human behavior is motivated by inborn biological urges to survive and preserve the species. Individual vulnerability versus differential susceptibility. Crime-producing interactions involve both personal and environmental factors. Under individual vulnerability model, we have a direct link between traits and crime. Some people develop physical or mental conditions that affect their social functioning. Under the differential susceptibility model, we have indirect association between traits and crime. Some people possess traits that make them more susceptible to environmental influences. Now let's look at the biochemical conditions and crime. What are the products that brings on the biochemical condition and crime? We look at number one, the diet, in other words, what we eat. We also look at hypoglycemia. That would be low sugar level. And then we also look at hormonal influences such as androgen and testosterone. And then we also look at premenstrual syndrome. This applies to women only. We also look at lead exposure in our neighborhood, and it also deals with environmental contaminants, such as chemicals that are being released into our waters and in our neighborhood. Neurophysiological conditions and crime again. We look at neurophysiology, conduct disorder, brain structure, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, brain chemistry, such as neurotransmitters, and the arousal theory. Genetics and crime. Under genetics and crimes, we have parental deviance. We look at adoption studies, twin behavior, monozygotic twins, dizygotic twins, and inheritability of crime. Evolutionary views of crime. Competition for scarce resources influenced and shaped human species. The evolution of gender and crime focuses on gender differences, survival of the gene pool. Aggressive males have led to the greater impact on the gene pool. The psychodynamic perspective of crime was discussed under Sigmund Freud. It deals with the id, the ego, and our superego. Also include attachment theory. Let's look at the behavioral perspective. Under there, we have the behavior theory, social learning theory, behavior modeling and its effect on violence, family interactions, environmental experiences, mass media. Under social learning, we have event items arousal, aggressive skills, expected outcomes, consistency of behavior with value. Cognitive theory deals with how people perceive and mentally represent the world around them and solve problems. Information processing theory and mental script. Personality and crime. Personality deals with reasonable, stable patterns of behavior that distinguish one person from another. Let's look at researcher Hans Eysenck. His research work is based on psychotism, extroversions, neuroticism, extreme extroverts or introverts at risk for antisocial behavior. Under psychopathic and antisocial personality, it deals with combination of traits and inability to empathize with others that make person prone to deviant behavior and violence. Nature theory. Intelligence is largely determined genetically, and low intelligence is linked to criminality. Nurture theory says that intelligence is not inherited, but is largely a product of the environment, such as low IQ does not cause crime, but may result from the same environmental factors. IQ crime link controversy. Travis and Ashi and Michael Hidulang suggested a link exists between intelligence and crime during their research. They show us that low IQ in youth causes poor performance in school, and school failure is highly related to delinquency and adult criminality. Crime and human nature. James Q. Wilson and Richard Hamstein are the prominent researchers under the crime and human nature. It shows low intelligence leads to poor school performance, which enhances the chances of criminality. Now let's look at mental disorders and crime. Possible origins of mental illness are genetic predisposition. In other words, some of us are born into that from our parents. We are predisposed to that. Traumatic family and upbringing. In other words, where you have an unstable family and where the parents are not around to raise the kids and they are building up on one another, something traumatic that their children are witnessing every day as they grow up. Brain trauma, so especially when people have an accident or something wrong with their brain, it could change their personality. And then we also have substance abuse, which has to do with people taking drugs or alcohol. Learning, such as in an abusive home also. Possible relationship between crime and mental disorder, such as mood disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, otherwise known as ODD, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder. Let's look and evaluate the trait theory. Critics of the trait theory argued that some trait theories are racist and faulty. Implies people in certain geographic areas and large cities are predisposed to criminality. Under contemporary trait theories, it maintains that some people have potential to be violent or antisocial, and antisocial behavior occurs when the pre-existing tendencies are triggered by environmental conditions. Primary prevention programs seek to treat personal problems before they manifest as crime. In other words, if you are having a mental issue of any one of those or anything that deals with trait theory that make people commit crime, it's always good to treat the personal problems before they become an issue as one is growing up. Secondary prevention programs, it means we provide treatment to youths and adults after they have violated the law. And once we know what causes them to violate the law, maybe we have to send a kid to a drug rehab or alcohol rehab. That would be an example of that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now we will start chapter 6